So imagine this. You're one of the biggest movie stars on the planet, famous for playing an actual god. You sign up for a docuseries to test the limits of the human body, and you give a routine blood sample. You figure, hey, they'll tell you about your cholesterol, right? What you absolutely do not expect is for that little vial of blood to hold a secret, hidden deep in your DNA, that completely changes how you see the rest of your life. That's the urgent message Dr. Peter Attia sent to the producer of Chris Hemsworth's show. He'd just gotten the results back, and he knew, right there and then, that the rules of reality TV had to be thrown out the window. Some things are just too real, too personal, to be turned into a gotcha moment for an audience. This was one of them. So what was it? What could possibly be so serious that it had to be revealed in total privacy, away from the entire film crew? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what they found, the science behind it, and the powerful lesson it teaches us about facing our own future. And you're going to want to stick around because what this discovery means for you might be the biggest surprise of all. Now, this story doesn't kick off with a calm clinical conversation. No, it starts with a series of panicked phone calls that sent Chris Hemsworth's mind spiraling to the absolute worst-case scenario. Okay, so let's walk through how this all went down. Back in December 2019, Hemsworth gives the blood samples, pretty standard stuff. But a couple of weeks before filming starts, Dr. Attia gets the results and sees a massive, flashing red flag. He immediately calls the show's creator and says, look, I have to tell him this off camera first. This leads to a frantic message to Hemsworth, who's just told, you need to call Peter, something's come up. And his first thought, oh my God, how long do I have left? He was completely terrified before he even knew what the news was. So after all that buildup, what was the actual discovery? The doctor finally gets Hemsworth on the line and explains that out of this huge battery of tests they ran, they found something concerning in his genetic makeup. The whole thing centered on a gene called APOE, which is short for apolipoprotein E. Now, everyone has this gene. You get one copy from your mom, one from your dad. But a specific version of this gene, known as APOE4, is very strongly linked to a much higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. And this was the bombshell. Chris Hemsworth didn't just have one copy of this risk gene, he had two. He'd inherited the APOE4 variant from both of his parents. And this is an incredibly rare genetic combination, found in only about 1 to 2% of the entire population. So what does having two copies actually mean in terms of risk? Well, it doesn't just bump it up a little bit. According to Dr. Attia, it skyrockets his risk of developing Alzheimer's to somewhere between 8 and 10 times higher than the average person. That is just a staggering statistic. But here's the most important part, and the doctor made sure to hammer this home. This gene is a risk factor, it is not a guarantee. And that is a huge difference. Some genes out there are deterministic. If you have them, you will get the condition. End of story. This is not one of those. You can think of it like this. The APOE4 gene might load the gun, but it doesn't automatically pull the trigger. Okay, let's put the science aside for a second. How does a person, a guy in peak physical condition who literally plays a superhero for a living, process news that his greatest vulnerability might be his own mind? In his own words, it just floored him. You know, you go through your youth feeling invincible, like you're going to live forever, and then one phone call confronts you with this very specific vision of your own mortality. It was a massive shock to the system. And you have to understand, this wasn't just some abstract medical term to him. He knew exactly what this disease looked like, up close. His own grandfather suffers from Alzheimer's, so he had seen firsthand just how devastating it can be. That personal connection made this genetic news feel so much more real and so much more terrifying. But then, after that initial shock wore off, something pretty remarkable started to happen. The story began to shift. What at first felt like a curse started to transform into something else entirely, a call to action. This right here, this is the pivot point of the whole story. Dr. Attia completely reframed the situation for him. He said, look, this knowledge, as scary as it is actually a blessing. And why? Because it gives you the motivation to start protecting your brain health right now, while you're young, not decades down the road when it might be too late. And Hemsworth didn't waste any time. He immediately turned that knowledge into action, focusing on 4 key areas: getting his stress levels down, practicing more mindfulness, really dialing in his nutrition, and perfecting his sleep habits. And here's the beauty of it. As he says, everything he's doing to protect his brain is also great for the rest of his body. It's a total win-win. Now, what's crazy is that for 2 whole years, this was a completely private journey. The world was never supposed to know any of this. The decision to finally share this incredibly personal secret was a long and very deliberate one. In fact, the production team actually shot 2 completely separate versions of the show, one that included the whole genetic discovery and another that just pretended it never happened. They told him, look, it's your story. The final call is 100% yours. So why did he decide to go public? He realized that if this information could motivate him to make positive changes, then maybe, just maybe, his story could motivate other people too. He saw it as a massive missed opportunity not to talk about it. He decided to turn his vulnerability into a tool to help others. Okay, so this is a fascinating story about a very famous person. But why is it so important for the rest of us? This is where the story stops being about Thor and starts being about you. Because here's the thing. While Hemsworth's double gene situation is rare, having at least one copy of the APOE gene isn't rare at all. A staggering 20 to 25% of the population has it. That means up to 1 in every 4 people watching this right now. And just look at the impact of that. That group, that 25% of people with at least one copy of the gene, accounts for roughly 2/3 of all Alzheimer's cases. Let that sink in for a second. 1/4 of the population accounts for 2/3 of the disease. That is exactly why this awareness is so critical. Which really brings us to the ultimate question at the heart of this entire story. Chris Hemsworth got a peek at a possible future, and he used that information to radically improve his present. So the real question for all of us is, if you had that same knowledge, would you do the same thing? You know, this story is such a powerful reminder that knowledge, even when it's scary, can be an absolute superpower. If you found this useful, help us make more just like it by hitting that subscribe button and ringing the notification bells so you never miss what's next. And now I really want to know what you think. Drop a comment below. Do you think this kind of genetic knowledge is a burden or is it a blessing? Let's talk about it. Thanks for watching. So what if I told you that one tiny little food item could hold the key to your brain's future, even if you carry a gene that puts you at a higher risk for dementia? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into today, how to defend your brain. And it all starts with what's on your fork. Let's get right to it. You know, not long ago, the actor Chris Hemsworth found out he has 2 copies of the APOE4 gene, and that ups his risk for Alzheimer's. And it really brings up a huge question for all of us, right? Do you even want to know your genetic risk? Or is it actually more powerful to just focus on what you can do about it, no matter what your genes say? And that really is the question, isn't it? It's so easy to get caught up thinking that our genetics are our destiny. But the truth is, there are an incredible number of other risk factors that you have control over. You can't change your genes, that's true, but you can absolutely change what happens next. So this brings us to our first big idea, this sort of battle between what's written in your DNA and what's sitting on your dinner plate. And let me tell you, the power is way more in your hands than you probably think. Okay, now what's so fascinating here is how this flips the whole idea of risk on its head. About 1/4 of us, 25%, carry one copy of this APOE4 gene. But look at the reality here. A whopping 40% of people with Alzheimer's don't have the gene at all. So the takeaway is huge. This gene is not a sentence. It's a risk factor, sure, but it is not the whole story, not even close. To really understand why this is so important, I need to make this personal for a minute. For me, this isn't just about numbers and statistics, it's about my mom. Her journey with dementia really showed me firsthand just how sneaky and then how completely devastating this disease can be. You know, the signs, they started years before anyone else really noticed. First, she got lost driving to my house, a drive she had made hundreds of times. Then one day she calls me, just screaming, convinced that I had stolen her keys. We found them on the floor, right next to her chair. And as things went on, her mood swings, they became just dramatic, totally unpredictable. The real crisis hit when a simple UTI spiraled into sepsis, and her memory just fell off a cliff. It's like this slow, quiet creep, and then all of a sudden, a free fall. My mom's story, it just made me question everything. Like, what are the triggers that we're not seeing? And it turns out our brains are constantly, every single day, dealing with these invisible enemies, hiding in our everyday environment. And these threats, they're often things we don't even think twice about. Things we eat, things we breathe in, they're silent, they build up over time, and they could have a massive impact on our brain health down the line.
Okay, take arsenic, for example. We probably think of it as some kind of poison from an old movie, right? But just look at this list. It's in rice, it's in seafood, sure, but it's also in textiles, paper, car exhaust, even the wood preservatives in our own homes. It is literally all around us. And then there's lead. If your home was built before 1978, you're almost certainly being exposed to it from chipping paint, dust, the soil outside. And here's a super important tip. Never, ever drink or cook with water from the hot tap in an older house. The hot water actually dissolves more lead from the old pipes. You always want to use cold water and then heat it up yourself. Okay, so that was the heavy stuff, the invisible enemies. But here is the really good news. You can build an unbelievably powerful defense system. And the best armor you have? It's foraged with food. See, your body is not helpless here. It has this amazing built-in system that is designed specifically to handle these kinds of threats. Our job is just to give that system the right fuel so it can do its job. The hero of this whole system is something called glutathione. I want you to think of it as your body's master antioxidant. It's the cleanup crew that goes in and handles all the damage, that oxidative stress caused by heavy metals and other toxins. So how do we get it working? It's actually a really simple, elegant process. Step 1, toxins get in, they cause that oxidative stress. Step 2, you eat cruciferous vegetables, think broccoli, kale, that kind of thing, which give you a compound called sulforaphane. And step 3, that sulforaphane supercharges your glutathione system, which then goes in and neutralizes all that stress and helps get those heavy metals out of your body. It's a direct cause and effect. So let's build out our whole defense team. We've got the cruciferous veggies powering up glutathione. Then there's garlic with its compound allicin, which directly supports your liver's detox process. I swear, my dad was sharp as a tack deep into his old age, and he ate raw garlic with pretty much everything. Then you've got turmeric's curcumin fighting inflammation, and green tea's EGCG, which is really special because it can actually cross the blood-brain barrier and protect your neurons directly. Now let's talk about another group of defenders. Berries. I mean, they're famous for their antioxidants, right? Those things called anthocyanins, which are amazing for the brain. But when it comes to packing a real punch, some berries are just in a totally different league. And this chart just says it all. Wild blueberries, they're great. A fantastic choice for sure. But look at this. Black currants have way more of those powerful anthocyanins. And at the very top of the chart, black raspberries. They have the highest concentration, which makes them a true brain-boosting superstar. Okay, so food is the foundation, right? But if you want to build true, lifelong resilience, you've got to think a little bigger. We need a more holistic strategy. Let's look at how this all fits into a complete lifestyle approach. Our brains are about 60% fat, but the type of fat you eat is absolutely critical. Think of your brain's neurons like a bunch of electrical wires. They need insulation around them. It's called a myelin sheath to work right. Omega-3 fatty acids are that insulation. But here's the problem. The average American diet is just flooded with these pro-inflammatory omega-6s. The ratio is about 28-1. The ideal? It's closer to 4-1. At 28-1, it's like we have a ton of naked electrical wires sparking in our head, and we are desperate for more of that omega-3 insulation. So what's a simple, actionable plan look like? It's basically 3 parts. First, balance those fats. Cut way back on the seed oils and really prioritize omega-3s from things like seafood and walnuts. Second, move your body. Just aiming for 10,000 steps a day improves blood flow to the brain. And third, so simple, stay hydrated. Your brain is 73% water. Even being just a little bit dehydrated can seriously impact your memory. If you need just one reason to start today, let it be this number, 18 years. That's how long the subtle, invisible changes of dementia can be developing in the brain before anyone ever gets an official diagnosis. The process starts long before the symptoms ever show up. And that's really why this all matters so much. This isn't just about preventing some disease in the far-off future. The small choices you make at the dinner table today, that walk you decide to take, it's an investment in the person you want to be tomorrow and for all the decades to come. You are actively building your future self right now. Just remember this, your genes are not your destiny. They are just the opening chapter of the book. You are the author of the rest of it. So the only question left is, what story are you going to write?
If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It really helps the channels. Drop a comment below. Which early signs stood out to you the most, Or what's one thing you'll do today to support your brain health? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next videos. The products I recommend and personally use to support neurological performance are listed in the video description. I've left the correct links right below. Take a look and choose what makes the most sense for your routine. Just a reminder, this isn't medical advice, and if you have any health condition or take medications, talk to a healthcare professional before starting any supplement.